Well, today we are talking about the RF 85mm f2.0 IS Macro Elemental P. Well, hey, what's up? My name is Tony, and I'm a filmmaker photographer in the St. Louis area. Hope you're doing well. Today we're talking about the RF 85mm f2. And if you know me, you know that I love the R series camera setup from Canon. I love the EOS R, the R6, the R5. I've got both of those cameras. And then I've played around a ton with the EOS RP, and that's a really good camera too. So one of the things that I love that Canon is doing with this system is they're developing this incredible lens system, just like they have in the EF mounts. And I really see this as playing out, and they're trying to fill in all of those gaps, all the way from zooms to primes, from entry level all the way up to Pro Series. So this lens is really important to someone like me who does a ton of portraits, does weddings, you know, I do headshots a lot, and a lot of times I use the 85 for that. Now, when I'm shooting a wedding, on my lead camera, I'm shooting with a 35mm and an 85. So those are important focal lengths for me. Then my second shooter usually has zooms like the 24 to 105, 70 to 200, 24 to 70. All of those are really good lenses for a second shooter to have. But for me, I'm hanging out with prime lenses. Now, they released this 85mm as their second RF prime lens, and it comes in around $600. What's really nice about it is it has image stabilization, it has macro, and your aperture is at f2, so it's a pretty good lens all-arounder, you know, for that mid-tier price. It's not cheap, but it is not expensive. So today, let's just talk about some of the things that I really like about this lens. If you're looking for, you know, technical specs and the graph that shows what's in focus, that's not me. Like, I use this gear day in and day out, and really it comes down to one, what does it feel like in my hands? How does it respond? And then two, can I connect with it, you know? Like, do I have this connection with the lens? And I'll tell you what, there's some lenses that I just absolutely love, and there's other lenses that I don't. And it doesn't really matter about price, because when it comes down to them, the lens we're shooting on right now, the Nifty 50, I love this lens. We're shooting on it right now, and it's $200. So, all right, let's talk about the 85. Some of the things that I really like about this lens. The first thing is it's $600. Now, for a prime lens, that's really not bad. There's only two other prime lenses that cost less in the RF series. That's the 35mm and then the 50mm. Other than that, there's no other cheaper lenses in this whole RF lineup than the 85mm. So the price is right for somebody who, one, has like an RP and is just getting into prime lenses, or two, they don't want to spend a ton of money. Maybe they're not making money with their camera gear, but they still want to have some nice gear and continue to develop that system. So $600, I think, is a really attainable price for the, you know, the involved hobbyist, or somebody who is up and coming, just starting to make some money, making maybe the weekend warrior, or you're just picking up some weddings, or you're picking up some side jobs and you're ready to start taking it to the next level. So $600, that's a good price point. Next thing is I really love some of the features that are included in this lens, including image stabilization, which is huge for me because of video, and macro, which means I don't really take photos of like really tiny subjects, but I like the ability that when I'm scooting in closer to my subject, I don't hit that minimum focus range. And so you can continue to push in, and you're not really hitting that minimum focal range on the lens. So those are really good things. Another thing that I really like about this lens is that it's pretty lightweight. Now, when you compare this lens to, say, my favorite lens ever, like literally, it's between this and the 100mm. This is the EF 85mm f1.4 IS. I love this lens, and I would say like 75% of what I shoot has basically been on this lens recently. I love this lens. But we've got this guy, which is much smaller, it's much lighter. So that means on a gimbal, you're going to be able to last longer. When you're handheld, when you're carrying it around, this is just a little bit easier. And if you're using the 85mm f1.4, then you have to have the adapter on as well, which makes this lens even bigger and bulkier. So another really cool thing that I like about this is the size and weight. All right, other than that, when it comes to image quality, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not a really big fan of what I've gotten out of this lens. Now, don't get me wrong, you can still get beautiful photos, you can still get incredible video, but for me, when I'm used to the 85mm f1.4, it feels like it's missing something, and I can't put my finger on what that is. I don't think it's the aperture depth, because you can still get an incredibly blurry background. Here is a video that I shot with the 85mm just last week. This is with the f2.0 on a Ronin S with the EOS R6. You can see here you get plenty of background blur. I just feel like there's something that I'm not connecting with this lens, and I don't know if it's because it's a little bit lighter, and sometimes with a little heavier lens you get a little bit more stable or connected, grounded feeling. I mean, honestly, I've gotten good photos with it. I've gotten great video. It's just, for some reason, I can't put my finger on it. It just doesn't have that like beautiful look that the 85mm f1.4 has. And I would venture to say that this lens is less than half of the cost of the 85mm. So you're talking way better glass than some of the L series. You're talking a little bit better electronics, all of those kinds of things that you pay for with a more expensive L series glass. By the way, I also have another guest here, the RF 85mm f1.2, and Canon just sent this to me to play around with a little bit. Just notice the size difference here, how much bigger this 1.2 is, and it's significantly heavier. So when you put this on a gimbal, it's going to be harder to balance. It's not stabilized, which may not matter if you have the R5 or the R6, but it's just going to wear you out a lot faster. So, man, these are cool lenses. But anyways, yeah, I'm excited to play around with this guy, but you're just not gonna get the quality and the look that you're gonna get out of an 85 1.2 or the 85mm f1.4 EF version. Now, that may not matter to you as a an entry-level photographer, videographer. If you haven't had the luxury of using these EF, L series glass, high-end lenses, then maybe you're not going to notice it as much. But just for me personally, one of the things that I don't like is just the feel of it when it's coming out. Now, another thing that I have noticed is that the autofocus is a little slower than it is on some of my other lenses like the 35mm or the 50mm. And I think the biggest reason for that is with 85mm, that means you have a really long distance to use for focusing, including that macro. Now, there is a switch on this lens that you can choose between full, you can choose in between half a meter, and then in between like a third of a meter and half a meter, and that will help speed up that focus. But you have to remember, if you move out of that range, you have to move it back. So a lot of times I move it just to full and leave it there, but then I complain about how slow the autofocus is. Well, that's partially my own fault, but it's just something that I've just noticed it's not quite as fast. Then the other thing I don't really like about this lens, and this is kind of a big deal for me just because of the lifestyle that I live, and that is that this lens does not have any weather sealing. If you know me, I'm into Jeeps and motorcycles. I don't mind going out in the snow, all of those things like weather. Typically when the weather is bad, that's when you're gonna get good photos. And so for somebody who's like me, who, I push my gear to the limits, it kind of scares me that this doesn't have weather sealing. And so that limits, we went out just 2 nights ago, we got a big snowstorm here and went out in the Jeeps and took photos and got some epic stuff. I didn't take any video. I don't know why. It's just too busy and it's way too cold. But I couldn't really use this lens because I was worried about all of that snow and water getting inside of my R5 or my R6 when I was out playing around in the snow. So just something that I don't like about it. It's something that I'm sure you already knew, that the lens did not have, you know, weather sealing, but for me, these are things that all are negatives when it comes to this lens. All right, so why don't we wrap this video up with who do I think this lens is for? First of all, if you are a professional, if you make money, I would not suggest this lens for you. I think it's an okay lens. It just doesn't have that same build quality as some of the pro level lenses. So if you're a professional, save your pennies, cash in on that 85mm f1.2, or continue to use the EF 85mm f1.4, because I think that you're not going to get the same results that you get with this beautiful lens. Man, I remember when they came out with this 85mm f1.4, they knocked this thing out of the park. It was just all of the sudden the B-roll king, you know, just beautiful bokeh, just looks so good, great for portraits, you know, great for events, all of that kind of stuff. So if you're a pro, I would steer away from the 85mm f2. But if you are, like I said, an entry-level photographer, videographer, maybe you have the RP, maybe you have the EOS R, and you're okay with spending less money on gear that you know is not going to be top tier, you are still going to be able to get incredible photos and videos out of this lens. I want you to hear that. I know that I'm kind of like, I don't really like it, but that's just because it's not for me. For you, you could still get incredible content with this lens. Another person that I think that this would be really good for is somebody who, you know, they are a hobbyist. They've been around for a while, but you keep all of your lenses kind of tucked in their own little spot. You only go out in fair weather, all of those kind of things. Maybe you don't like the weight of the heavier L series lenses. This is a good alternative. Like I said, you're gonna be able to get good pictures and video with it, but you know, it's gonna be a lot lighter. So maybe if you don't like having a very heavy setup with your camera, then this is a good opportunity for you to pick up a prime lens that's gonna get you better low light, that's gonna get you better bokeh than, say, a zoom lens. All right, the only thing else I have to say about this lens is that for me personally, I've noticed that I like video better than I do photo, which rings true for the 35mm RF lens too. I can't wait for them to come out with an L series lens that's a 35mm, because those are the two lenses I shoot all the time, 35mm and 85mm. So like I said, video wise, I really like this lens a little bit better than I do photo. I don't know why that is. Like I said, like, you just have to have a connection with the lens, and I just really never have felt that connection with this lens. So for me, I'm either going to hold on to my 85mm f1.4, keep using that with the adapter, which is really the only lens that I use, or depending on how much I like this 85mm 1.2, is it worth it for me to upgrade? It's just, man, these lenses are expensive when you get into these big, huge, and I don't mind the size of them and the weight, because like I said, like, it adds up a little bit of a stability. So, and I'm used to holding big 70-200s and big cinema gear anyways, so the big lens does not bother me. It's really the price. And so, yeah, I'm sure that all matters to you as well. Hopefully this video has helped you. Like I said, it's just an opinion video. There's not a lot of specs and tech stuff. If you want that, there's tons of videos on YouTube. But I wanted to share with you my perspective on these lenses, because this could look really enticing to somebody, and you spend $600 on it, and then you just can't put your finger on why it's not connecting with you. Well, chances are it's the glass inside of it. That's why it costs $600. My buddy Daniel, he helps me with a lot of weddings. We were talking about it too. And when he heard about this, when we heard about the rumors, he's like, oh, this is going to be great. I'm going to get one of these as soon as I get it. And then as soon as he tried it, he realized, okay, maybe I have outgrown these entry-level lenses, and it's time to move up to some of the better quality glass. So I don't know where you're at in the journey, but if you pick up one of these, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a great lens, just like the 50mm, just like the 35mm. That's why they make so many different lenses in the Canon system for people where they're at on their journey. So, alright guys, if this video was helpful, if you like the EOS R system, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I give all sorts of tutorials on autofocus, on shooting in log, on camera tips and tricks. All of those kinds of things fall into this channel. So make sure to subscribe. I'm butchering this, aren't I? Make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys.